The Business Developers Network features innovative concepts that generate value by increasing top and bottom lines or enhancing intangible assets. Developing new business is a company's lifeblood. Prospecting and quantifying leads is expensive and time-consuming. You will want to listen to this episode of the Business Developers Network to learn how our guests have reimagined how to develop new business and reduce the cost and time for prospecting and delivering a quantified pipeline. Hello, this is Artie Ruderman. The Business Developers Network is a forum where business leaders exchange innovative concepts for developing business. Business Developers Network defines business development as any activity that generates value, something that increases top and bottom lines and enhances intangible assets. Joe Colavito, a wise sales coach, has said, "We are all facing a growing problem." Isn't that a hard reality? It doesn't matter if you are as large as AT&T or a small company. That success of your business is predicated upon achieving new sales. Developing new sales, new business, marketing, and salespeople are among the most expensive budget line items. Key to developing new business is how and where to find new prospects. Marketing builds brand awareness, but it's expensive and difficult to quantify results. Salespeople having direct contact with a prospect is effective and the results quantifiable. However, salespeople need to spend too much time hunting and qualifying prospects, which otherwise could be spent delivering your proposition. Our guests today, Paul Domanski and Shaun Doorn from Linked Alliance. You will want to listen to learn how Linked Alliance has reimagined prospecting and can effectively and inexpensively deliver a quantified pipeline. Who doesn't wish they could be fed contact information for quantified prospects? Linked Alliance not only finds prospects, but they also drive new customers by building an automated LinkedIn sales force to schedule appointments for you with them. Better yet, the cost per prospect and scheduling is low. There's a small fee for only the contacts that you select, and with no additional cost, you could contact them yourself, or for a slightly higher fee, Linked Alliance can schedule a call with the contact for you. Here to tell us about how Linked Alliance develops contact leads for you, please welcome Paul Domanski, CMO at Linked Alliance, and Shaun Doorn, President. Before we start, I always like to provide a little bio, so if each of you would just kind of brief the audience on who you are and how you got to where you are.
Sure.
I'll start. Oh,
yeah,
you start, Shaun?
Okay. Yeah, hi, thanks, Artie, for the introduction.
Just for my audience, this is Shaun speaking.
Yeah, this is Shaun speaking. Sorry. Yeah, I kind of been always in the sales prospecting side of things back in since a very young age, and evolved from there, getting into selling of wine and then doing charity fundraising on the side of the streets, and then evolved accordingly to looking after big mobile networks such as BuzzCity and things like that, and working closely with AirPush and these other networks accordingly, and kind of climbed the ladder really quickly. But yeah, there was a few faults in regards to all those sort of lead generation systems. So me and Paul actually slowly found each other through very different avenues of business, and slowly migrated into what we now call the Linked Alliance, which, yeah, we will get into a little later. But yeah, that's basically my background. Been doing sales my whole life, and then also covered a bunch of tech. I built most of the systems as well. And yeah, that's me. You go ahead there, Paul.
Yeah, Paul speaking here. My background is a little bit different to Shaun's. I actually started in the film industry. I used to do a lot of video editing and a lot of script writing. And through that process, I kind of learned a lot about how to engage people with writing. So I'd say my background is founded in copywriting and being able to engage people with words. When Shaun and I met, we initially focused a lot on performance-based marketing through Facebook. So we gained a lot of knowledge and experience in reaching and engaging people through a cold platform like Facebook ads. And then slowly our business evolved, and yeah, we sit here today, do most of the client liaison, the copywriting, a lot of the sales, and general business development stuff at the company. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. I think another thing the audience should know is that you two are speaking to us, and your company is based out of South Africa.
Yes, that is correct.
That's right.
That's interesting. And we had a little discussion before we went on air, and your major market right now, your major focus of your concentration for your sales is the US being the largest market. And that's something that a lot of listeners out there are new companies, and they would like to know, perhaps, how does a company from South Africa enter the US market and build some brand awareness? What would be the way that you started that maybe they could relate to? Particularly if they want to go to South Africa or Europe or somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I think the beauty of our system is that it's completely independent of geography. We can run it from anywhere in the world, and we use the power of the networks that exist today to do that. And I think that anybody can run a business targeting anyone with the power of tools like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google. So there was never a limitation for us, and there wasn't much of a ceiling that we had to break through or anything like that. We just immediately set our sights on the US market because it was the biggest, and we knew how to engage with their most effective, having markets to them before. And that's what we built our systems to do from the ground up. A big part of our system is obviously LinkedIn. I'd say it's about 80% of the outreach we do happens through LinkedIn. And the biggest audience on LinkedIn and the most engaged and the most willing to spend money on business development is based in the US. So that's how that happened. And it's very feasible for anyone to do that in this day and age, I believe.
Well, business today is global. So I think your awareness of that and not being per se in the United States, which becomes like a bubble sometimes for marketing purposes, they stay within borders. I think that gives you all an advantage, quite frankly. So that's very interesting. So let's talk about Linked Alliance. Your website, it says that all I would have to do as a business is give you all the characteristics for my ideal prospect. And then you'll custom build a LinkedIn profile based on that and do a scraping, if you will, of LinkedIn and find targeted prospects that you will provide the contacts to me and or actually reach out to them, which goes back into your copywriting experience, Paul, and schedule an appointment for us. So the secret sauce is the cutting edge technology to extract a huge targeted database and perfect prospects, if you will, from LinkedIn. So tell us about that process.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So
allow me, Paul, on this one. Yeah, no problem. So really, when it comes down to the whole scraping system, LinkedIn has all this information for us. It's all provided. It's just about getting it in the right way at the right time, and then being able to compile it correctly and then use it. So we leverage off LinkedIn to be able to get the people that we're looking for that fit the right criteria that would be your ideal prospect. And then following which we would actually compile that and have multiple other systems that go and source out these individuals' actual business email addresses and validate them as well. And then again, further update those databases. These databases, obviously, we then provide to our clients at any time because they are completely customized for them, as we would, use them as a by proxy for the actual targeting on LinkedIn. So with that being said, these databases, they grow exponentially by about 30,000 leads per month on average, which usually for any client would be, it's a huge value add. In the end, you're getting a full customized database with the individual's first names right through to their current roles, their business roles, how long they've been in their business, the size of the company, the business email address, sometimes even their personal email address, which is their Gmails, and then their cell phone numbers that are listed on LinkedIn, if there is any. So, yeah. So
a recent contract I just had, by the way, for your sake and for my audience sake who's not familiar with me, I provide a COO and CMO services on a fractional basis. My recent contract was with an industrial brush manufacturer. When I say industrial brushes, I'm not talking about sweepers. I'm talking about these giant 8, 12-foot brushes that scrape grit from steel mills when their steel sheeting is produced. So
Sure.
I would be looking for the plant managers at a very high level.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be looking for the C-level of high executive level of U.S. Steel, let's say, right? So
Yes.
you would be able to provide me, while I'm doing my search, with the contact information for Alcoa and U.S. Steel and you know, maybe 20 others, and I don't know how many large, actually I do, there aren't that many, only a couple of dozen large manufacturers of steel. You could provide that information, their email and their phone contacts?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would say that that's quite a small piece of the process that we actually provide, the service that we provide. To give you like a high level overview of exactly how our system works, you would, as you just verbally, so all clients who come on board with us fill in an onboarding form that describes their ideal prospects in as much detail as possible. So you'd provide stuff like job titles, plant manager, for example, company sizes. You only want to target companies with more than 200 employees, for example. All of this information you feed to us. And we use that information to do two major things. The first thing is we use it to find the people that you're looking for on LinkedIn and add them into a database. The second thing we do is we use those insights that we gain into your company through that form to develop your copy. So I oversee the copywriting for all of our clients, but we have a team who basically works on the copy, and we go through a few revisions, and then we present that copy to you and you would review it. And the way that works from there is once you approve the copy, we build you a virtual team of business development managers. So you would have, basically imagine a set of employees who are reaching out on LinkedIn tirelessly around the clock to get your message out. So that's what we build for you, is that virtual team. And once the messaging is approved, the messaging goes out to all of those prospects. Now, Shaun was touching on the fact that we're able to pull all of the prospect data. And the way we're able to do that is by connecting with the prospects. So the goal of our first message is not to immediately get them to book a call. It's to basically get them to connect so that we're able to get more information on the prospect and reach out to them in other ways, send them a voice message. So all of these different channels of outreach allow us to basically get people who are interested in your services to book onto your calendar. And then we charge per booked call. So the target database is only a very small part of what we actually offer, but it is a very important and valuable part.
Of course.
Shaun, do you want to add to that, or?
No. So, I mean, he pretty much summed it up in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Overview
So,
of the company.
what I'm hearing is your basis of most of your data is coming from LinkedIn. But if I go on LinkedIn, a lot of the contact information is just, it's not their cell phone, it's not their email. So you all are diving a little deeper to get that information. And do you also scrape information beyond LinkedIn? Do you go into their social media? Yeah.
No, we have a system that actually goes and guesses out their business email addresses, and then actually pings different business email addresses and then validates the one that actually worked. So we have a system that basically guesses out multiple variables of what we would guess their business email would be by taking obviously the business they currently work at and the domain they currently work at with. So let's say at abc.com, and then we know their first name and their last name. And then there's different variables that get built out, and then it pings all those until, so we get the validated email. As soon as it's validated, it gets inputted into the database and scheduled accordingly. And then, like Paul mentioned, we have multi-channels that we also reach out on. So we've got our one side of the system, which is touching all the LinkedIn points, sending the messages through LinkedIn, the chats and all the rest of it. And then we have another side, which is them getting direct email flows, they're getting voice notes, they're getting SMSs. We cover all those touch points as we proceed with our prospect or the client's prospect in that regard. So for example, they would be contacted on LinkedIn, and they would, one of these, we like to call them avatar accounts, which are a digital employee, if you wish, would do the outreach on behalf of your company, or, yourselves or ourselves if we're doing it. And then they represent your company in every regard. They send out the first message, which is a connection invite with an added note. And then that prospect would either respond to that message thinking that's a real person, or they wouldn't respond. If they don't, if they connected with that avatar, because it's a connection invite as well. If they connected, then that avatar would then send another follow-up message to them on their LinkedIn chat, and then again in 3 days. But while that's all happening, as soon as they've connected, we also then start an email drip flow to them, to their direct business email address, which would be on the first day, they would receive an email saying, thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn. Here's more information about our company. Please book here. The second, I think it's this, the flow better than I do, Paul, in regards to the emails. And that's coincided with SMSs and voice notes. So maybe you want to explain that flow a little better.
Yeah, so we have a very comprehensive flow of contacting the prospects. As I mentioned, the first connection request message, the goal is to get the connection happening so we get them into the funnel. Once they're in the funnel, we send a follow-up directly after the connection is accepted. This follow-up message has a booking link contained within it, so prospects can book at this point. If they respond at any point during any of these processes, they're removed from the funnel. That should be mentioned as well. So anyway, after that first follow-up, they get an email follow-up 1 day after the connection has happened on LinkedIn. So a day later, they'll get an email, and the email will not come from the business development manager on LinkedIn. It will come directly from our client. So we route the emails through our client's email address. So it goes through the first email address. The first email happens after 1 day. Then another day goes by, 2 days, and then we send an SMS follow-up. Then 2 more days, we send another email follow-up, and then 1 more day, and then we send a voice note. And the voice note is basically, they'll get a missed call, and they'll have a voice note from the client on their phone that'll basically say, hey, you seem like a good fit for our services on LinkedIn. But anyway, the net effect of the funnel.
A marketing role, I become hands-on doing sales. And I'll even do cold calls. But before I can do a cold call, good Lord, I spend hours finding the right contact within a company. I mean, so if you're paying a salesperson, $100,000, $50,000 of it, more half their time is spent. And what you're telling me is that you do all of that, do the reach out for them and say, hey, Artie, here's who you need to call. So I have to question now.
We actually,
Go ahead, Paul. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's even better than that. We get them onto your calendar directly. So you literally sit back and wait for booked calls to land on your calendar with qualified leads who are interested in your services. And all you do is you pick up the phone or you jump onto Zoom with the prospect and sell your services to them.
And then also, just to be clear as well, prior to when they've made that booking, we also send them a drip flow email to that prospect who's obviously made interest into that booking, with more information about the company that they made the booking with. So they get warmed up to the call every day, because they have to book 3 days in advance, so that on the time of the call, we obviously don't want people not to get on a call or have no shows or anything like that, but also have a much more in-depth breakdown of what the business is about before you get on a call. So they're more like warm leads than cold leads when you're actually on the call, and the closing rate for our clients is quite high in that regard. And that's why we work, because we charge you for good business.
So if I'm paying $100,000 to a salesman who half their time, $50,000, is finding the contact, and $50,000, half their time, is making those calls, if you will, following up on the contacts, and they're producing $1 million or $10 million, in a sense, I can almost double that, because now they don't have to do all that contact searching. So the question now is ROI. What is the charge for all the services that you provide? That's probably what most of my audience is wondering.
Yeah.
Millions. No, I'm joking.
Could be worth it.
Yeah. So we charge a one-time setup fee of $7.99 US, and that setup fee is basically inclusive of all of the copywriting, all of the agency dashboard that we need to set up for you to do the follow-up sequences, everything that needs to be set up on LinkedIn. It takes a lot of time and energy to get things set up. So that $7.99 covers all of our efforts that go into getting your campaign ready to launch. After that, you pay $65 per book call, and that's it. There's no lock-in, there's no retainer, there's no contracts. You only pay for book calls after that one-time setup fee. And our clients seem to like it.
Yeah,
and I would imagine listeners are scratching their heads saying, what? So why don't you repeat that, Paul? Because I think they would be very interested in what you just said.
So $7.99 one-time setup fee, $65 per book call. No contracts, no retainers.
And then can I just clarify one more thing in regards to that? So in regards to the book calls, there's two rules. So if the prospect, let's say, cancels the book call prior to the meeting, so the person who's obviously interested in your services or offerings, we will not charge you for that book call. If you cancel it prior to the meeting, it would need to be for two reasons. Either they're out of scope or they're looking for a job and you're not a recruitment agent. Then we would also not charge you for that call. Ideally, we're only going to charge you for calls that people who are going to be of interest to you and your services and offerings that we are actually advertising for you or outreaching for you. We'll only charge you for those.
If I'm not mistaken, in an earlier conversation we had on a phone a week or so ago, I think you had another option as well, which was allowing your client to write their own copy and make their own appointment, and there was a different price point for that. So it's $65 for you to write the copy and to reach out and to schedule an appointment, a booking.
Correct.
Per book call, yeah.
What is there another option, or did I get that wrong?
I don't believe there is
so
another
that's
option.
something that's yeah, so I mean, it is something that we've discussed in the past, and we have got the functionality that's built in to support clients setting up their own campaigns. But as it stands now, we are pretty happy with the way things are going, and our clients are too. So it's as what I've stated is pretty much our standard pricing option at this point.
Okay, so there's just that one option. We'll
Yep.
scrape the data for you, and we'll give you a contact, and we will book it for you. And the price for that is $65 for you to make a quantified call, if you will.
Correct, absolutely. And we would only bill you end of each month. So if you accumulated, say, 20 to 50 calls in a month, we bill you end of each month. And then if you don't want to proceed, you don't ever have to cancel the service. You can also just put the service on ice. So a lot of our clients have, let's say, they want to throttle or limit the amount of bookings that they receive per month because, sales team. So we've had clients that say, okay, cool, we only want, say, 50 or 20 bookings a month. And then we actually just provide that. We slow down the service near the end of the month. As soon as they hit those 20 bookings, we put it on ice and we restart up the system again in the beginning of the month. So you can also control the amount of bookings and the amount of money you want to spend on your budgeting for your outreach.
Well, we could probably go on for another hour at least. I think this is just a fantastic service. I mean, typically companies go to trade shows and they'll spend $50,000, $250,000 for trade shows. And I know I've gone through that myself, and I talk to other salespeople. They might get 100, 200 business cards, and at the end of the day, they're lucky if there are 4 to 6 that really have some meat to them. Sure. They're really not even targeted. They're kind of random, perhaps. So when you break down what typically companies pay for a quantified lead compared to what you are talking about, this is just amazing. We're almost out of time, but I want to make sure that the audience knows how to reach out for you. So one of you take over and provide that contact information.
Go for it, Paul.
Yeah, sure. So go to www.linkedalliance.com, LinkedAlliance.com, CE, and you'll find us there. Everything you need to book a call, email addresses are there, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Paul Domanski, CMO at LinkedIn, and contact me there if you have more questions that you want to deal with.
All right, thank you. All right, we are just at our time. Is there any short message that you want to leave with the radio audience?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a new age, and it's a good age to be able to get leads way easier, and we don't have to do door-to-door knocking-ons and trying to close the old school way. It's what me and Paul have kind of been striving to build and do it really well. So yeah, we've been doing it for a while. We've got a lot of clients. They like working with us, and if anyone wants to join us in moving their business forward, feel free to reach out to Paul. It's a good idea.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I think the business value proposition is just fabulous. I'll leave and say I will follow up with you all. And to the audience, thank you for listening. And remember to keep developing your business.